Hi guys, welcome back to the shop. Today we're going to spend some time talking about and constructing a mold for our next bow build. This build is going to be a Duoflex build, and so I have made a mold that is, I guess, to my liking as far as the shape of the limb that I want to get. And this is a mold that you can make should you try or decide to try, say, a fiberglass build or any other kind of tri-lam or more type build. I suppose you could do a dual lam, but if you have a single glue line, my suggestion is always to tiller your bow to the shape that you want it to be when you glue it. So this is going to be a piece that fits together. There are going to be two separate pieces that construct a single whole. And we'll go over today the process for building this mold. It's really not too awful complicated. It does require a few tools, namely a router and a flush trim bit, but beyond that, everything else is very easy. So hang in there with me. Let's just dive right into the build. Okay guys, so I just want to kind of go over the parts of what it is that we're trying to put together. Here's basically the mold that we're going to be recreating. We're going to do a different shape, of course, but these are the basic pieces and parts. So we're going to have a full mold that will handle the length of bow that we're looking to create. It's going to take a few pieces of MDF to put together. So this is sandwiched 3/4 inch MDF, so the total thickness or width on this is 1.5 inches, which is going to accommodate the lion's share of any bows that I ever make. Should you need something a little wider, you can input another like 1/2 inch piece or 1/4 inch piece or whatever it takes to get the width that you need for your needs. So that's easily adjusted. This is the template, and it's made out of a piece of masonite of what the riser should look like. Now, that is created by virtue of putting together this mold. So I think it'll be a little easier to see from this side. We have a center line drawn on here. We have a center line of the riser piece, and you can see that it matches this bend perfectly. All right, and so this was designed, this is a number of designs. This is the 7th mold that I have made in the past. Something that should be mentioned here is you don't want anything too abrupt or too massive in terms of the bends on these things. However, and it depends on what you're using it for. If you're going with a fiberglass tri-lam type of glue up, where the bow is going to hold the shape by and large that you assigned based on this mold, you don't want anything too loopy, I guess would be the way I want to describe it. You don't want the bends to be too big. And that's because your bow is going to hold that shape, unlike when you tiller it and have a single glue line where it gives back about half of that bend that you put into it when you take it out of the mold. In this case, it's not going to give back much. It's only going to give back a little. And this particular mold did not provide enough reflex or forward tips to the handle. All right, so this bow we're going to try and do a little bit more of an not Egyptian, I take that back, more of a Duoflex limb design. I do like what I've got going on here as far as a riser, but believe it or not, even as small as this seems, it ends up being pretty thick because we've got laminations on the back side, 2 laminations on the front side, so it ends up being quite a bit thicker than what you see here. So I am going to create a newer one that's just a little bit slimmer, okay, and hope that in the end it comes out at a decent thickness, and if not, we can always layer on a little bit against the heel of the grip, or even put an overlay on the front, which is a less optimal way to go. and I'm kind of feeling like perhaps with this build I may do a takedown, but that is yet to be seen. But anyway, these are the parts that we're looking to make. Here is our piece of masonite, and it might, or MDF rather, it might be kind of hard to tell that this is in fact a different piece than my worktop. And what I have here is a piece that is 48 inches in length by 24. So it's 1/4 of a regular size sheet of MDF. You can purchase them this size at the Home Depot, just like this, 2 foot by 4 foot. And what we're going to do is start by ripping it into essentially 6-inch sections. Okay, so you can see here we've got our 4 pieces cut out now. At this point we don't have to be exact, but they are pretty much 6 inches. Each of them is 6 inches minus a saw kerf. All right. 48 inches long, which is obviously going to be longer than what we need. And so we want to position these layouts such that we get what would be the grip of the bow kind of near one end, but then finish it out at the length of this piece. Now we can get as much as a 6 inches of deflection in this with a 6-inch piece of MDF. And I'm using MDF, guys, very specifically. It is easy to work. It is it's not a difficult wood for your tools to work, and you can get very clean finishes on your surfaces here. So these can be very clean and smooth, and it is a very stable piece of wood. It's not going to warp over time or have any issues with shrinking and that sort of thing based upon moisture contents, etc. So it's a very stable piece that is going to give you a mold that is going to stay intact for the long term. And that's so hopefully you can see the shape that I'm trying to put together there on the one piece of MDF. I did try to make it such that it would match this riser piece like the previous mold did. And that is kind of the design I'm looking at right there. So you can see that it's an accelerated curve out to something of a recurve, not entirely. And as I go about grinding this into shape, I may make this a little more abrupt here on this edge to get a little more of a recurve into that tip. But this is the starting point. And truthfully, guys, we only have to get this one piece of this mold to perfect shape. So I'm going to cut this out on the bandsaw and then grind it out on the sander here. I'll go with a bigger spindle than that and get the shape just right. And that's all we have to do, is get that one piece exactly the way we want it. And then I'll show you how we go about mimicking that then on the remaining pieces over here to get our finished product. All right, guys, so here is our finished product. And you can kind of see maybe just right around the edge here where I followed that pencil line just as close as I possibly could. Of course, when I cut it, I cut close to but not past, and then went ahead and ground it down on my belt sander here, or the oscillating belt sander, and got a real nice smooth surface here. And kind of like I had mentioned, you only have to get it right the first time, right? Like, you only have to get it right one time. I guess not the first time, but get this one right. So I also ended up having to take a block and sandpaper and take care of this edge here because it's on the inside inside roundy, and grind it out in here. But to finish getting it just right, took after it with a block and sandpaper. I did end up getting a little tighter curve on here. I just kind of worked that out on the sander. As I ground it out, I just ground it into a little steeper curvature just right out here at the tip. So we'll get a little more of that kind of recurve nature to it. So you can see that the curve is speeding up the whole way around. So we'll see how this plays out in the end here. We will now transfer this shape onto the remaining pieces here. So we'll transfer it onto this and then the other two here, and get everything cut out close. All we're going to do is get close, right? We'll outline it and then cut it out on the bandsaw close. We'll have one end, we'll double this width and create something like a lap joint right here for everything to come together, so that the two ends can connect at the center. Okay guys, here are our parts, and there's two of each, so two full length and two not so much so. And what you'll see is I've got equal distance measured here. Here is what would be the center of the grip of the bow. So center of the bow from here out to the tip, and then from here on out. So what we have with these pieces is it only extends to within about 2 1/4 inches to the center. And then the opposing piece here will lap back over top of this. Actually, let's see here. We'll get this piece here. And this will lap over top. And so what we have is one full length. See if I can kind of show that lap joint right there. See here, from tip out to tip here. And we have a lap joint right here. And I used to make these molds such that it was just one continuous mold. I'd attach everything right through here. But what I have started doing now is leaving these detached and making two separate pieces so that we can have this scenario where they come apart and then you can store it as two halves of one piece instead of one super long mold, which makes it difficult to store. So those are our pieces, and they're only rough cut. All right, so you can see the pencil line here and the real jagged edge of the cut itself. You can kind of see the shadows there. And what we're going to do is use the one good piece to go back through here and make a, we'll use a flush trim bit is how this is going to work. We're going to flush trim the pieces and get everything all lined up perfectly and a nice smooth surface across both ends, well, the whole mold. Okay, I have set up my router with a flush cut bit, and what will happen is this bearing will run against the good surface and match that contour then to the upper surface. Got it set such that the blade will run deep enough to do the 3/4 inch top piece in one cut, but not ride so low that it hits the top of my workbench. Everything's clamped together here. I shouldn't have any issues with running into anything, and have everything lined up on its flat bottom edge and then the flat back end of the piece, or flat handle section of the mold. I'm going to go ahead and just route this out, and then we'll get going with the next pieces. Alright guys, so at this point we have two matched pieces. Both our long pieces are routed out and matched up. And so now we're going to put on our overlapping pieces. And kind of like I mentioned, our equal distance piece from center for our overlap, we're going to get these pieces put in place. And what we're going to do is go ahead and fasten these down with screws. I'm just going to drill and screw these guys together. Probably do 2 screws and 2 screws here to get everything mounted together, and then match up the opposing side this way. Get everything there put together so that we know everything is lined up just right. And once we have attached then what would be our secondary rough piece to our finished pieces, because these are both now finished pieces that are going to have then the rough piece next to it. We'll just take these, get everything mounted together, and then go out and then route the mating pieces to match the initial 2 here, and we will have one complete mold. Okay guys, here we go. Two matched pieces right here, and you can kind of see a little bit of waviness and some of that, and so we'll come back across and give a little bit of a block and a sand on these just to smooth them out. So this is how I get them all matched up. We will next, from here guys, all we do is just take the parts and get them mated together here. Okay, we'll get them screwed in, or not screwed in, but we'll put dowels in here just to get it such that it can connect. And then we've got our, let's see if I can back this up a little bit, or riser piece that fits right in there. So here we go. This is 64 inches tip to tip on the mold. It'll make a 62-inch bow as a final dimension, knock to knock. All right, so I will see you next week, and thanks for dropping in this week. I will talk to you later.